They only pay attention when there's a ticking clock. Funny, isn't it? You tell them something life-changing, they scroll past. But say it's gonna vanish in 24 hours, suddenly you've got their full attention. That's how it works now. Urgency breeds curiosity, not truth. Doesn't matter if the building's burning unless you say it's the last building. Then they'll run. Not because they care, because they hate missing out. Oh, the fear of missing out, it's stronger than the fear of wasting their lives. So here you are. Not because you're searching for truth, no, but because someone whispered, this won't be here tomorrow. Suddenly it feels important. Suddenly it feels dangerous. Like maybe, just maybe, the thing you've been ignoring is the one thing that was trying to save you. And now the clock's ticking and you're finally listening. Not because you're ready, but because you're scared it'll disappear before you understand what it meant. Truth's funny, isn't it? Just sits there, quiet, constant, not begging for applause, not dancing for attention, and because it's always there, people walk past it like it's part of the wallpaper. Doesn't matter if it's screaming in their face, if it's not stamped, urgent, or wrapped in flashing lights, they scroll right by. That's the real joke. Truth could be holding a sign saying, I can save your life, and they'd still ignore it if it wasn't trending. But tell them this is disappearing in 24 hours. And suddenly everyone's wide-eyed, focused, hanging on every word. It's not the truth they care about. It's the thrill of losing something they never bothered to understand in the first place. You ever notice that? The second something has a deadline, it becomes precious. Suddenly the same thing they ignored becomes a treasure chest with a lock and a countdown. The same speech, the same warning, the same story. But now it's got a time limit. And that's what gets them. Not the meaning, not the lesson, the vanishing act. People don't want wisdom, they want exclusivity. If it feels rare, if it feels like it might slip through their fingers, now it matters. Now they click, now they care, but not because their soul's on fire, because the clock is. It's like they're wired backwards. They'll skip a message that could change their life, then spend 3 hours watching something because it says deleted soon. The weight of the truth doesn't draw them in. The fear of absence does. It's not about what they're learning. It's about what they're afraid to lose. People don't chase truth. They chase scarcity. Truth doesn't excite them unless it's got an expiration date. Put it in a box labeled forever and they'll walk away. Label it gone by tomorrow and suddenly it's sacred. Think about that. Think about what that means. You could be feeding them pure gold, but if they think they can come back later, they won't take a bite. They'll leave it there, rotting in the open, because in their heads, it's always available, always waiting, always patient. And then one day it's not. And suddenly the silence is deafening. Now the words mean something, but only because they're no longer there. Now the lesson stings, but only because it's out of reach. See, people only mourn what they took for granted. They only chase what they can't keep. It's almost poetic. The truth has no marketing team. It doesn't scream for your attention. It doesn't flash or flicker. It just waits. And that makes it invisible to most people Because in a world addicted to dopamine, silence looks boring. Stillness looks fake. Honesty looks unimpressive. So the truth stays quiet and the lies dance in the spotlight. Until the moment the truth decides to leave, that's when they panic. That's when they hit replay. That's when they beg for one more chance to hear what they ignored 100 times before. But time, oh, time is a cruel partner. It doesn't rewind, doesn't offer reruns, doesn't care about regret. And the truth, well, it walks hand in hand with time. It gives you the chance. It gives you the moment. But when that moment's gone, it doesn't come knocking again. It's not a doorbell you can press twice. It's not a video you can rewatch. It's a whisper that vanishes the second you stop listening. And when it's gone, you don't just miss the words. You miss the window. The real tragedy? They weren't blind, they weren't deaf, they were distracted. Busy chasing the loudest voice, the biggest promise, the flashiest fraud. Truth was there the whole time, calm and steady, waiting for eyes that actually wanted to see. But people don't want steady. They want spectacle. They want countdowns and cliffhangers. They want adrenaline, not answers. And that's why truth hides. That's why it wears camouflage in a world that only sees neon. So you slap a label on it, gone in 24 hours, and now suddenly everyone wants to listen. Now it's hot. Now it's viral. Not because the truth changed, but because their attention did. Their panic flipped the switch. And they'll sit there, eating every word like it's sacred, thinking they've found something new. But it was always there. The only thing that changed was the fear of losing it. Funny how people don't know what really matters to them until the fuse is lit, until something starts slipping through their fingers and they suddenly go wide-eyed, scrambling like rats in a sinking ship. That's when the truth shows up, not in the calm, not in the routine, but in the urgency. Pressure peels the paint off the walls, strips off the masks, shatters the illusion. Because when time starts ticking, when the window starts closing, all the pretend priorities, the fake smiles, the maybe laters, they all get shoved aside. And what's left? What you really care about. What you're really afraid to lose. That's the punchline. They walk through life acting like time's a buffet, like the clock owes them a second plate. But toss a deadline in their face, tell them it's now or never, and suddenly they see things. Not clearly, no, but with panic. It's a messy kind of focus, a desperate kind of clarity. You tell them they've got forever, and they waste it. You tell them they've got one day, and suddenly they're philosophers, dreamers, believers, lovers, fighters, all crammed into 24 hours. What changed? Not the truth, not the opportunity, just the awareness that it won't be around for long. See, urgency doesn't create value, it reveals it. It's like turning on a blacklight in a crime scene. Everything hidden comes crawling out. Suddenly the excuses don't matter. The distractions lose their grip. Because when you know you're running out of time, you stop playing games. You stop pretending you care about things that don't feed you. You stop bowing to routines that were never yours to begin with. Urgency makes cowards confess, and actors break character. It doesn't ask for honesty, it forces it. You see it in their eyes, that switch, that flicker. One moment they're too cool to care, and the next they're clinging to every word, every second, like it's sacred. And maybe it is. Maybe what they've been ignoring for years finally gets its spotlight when the lights are about to go out. But isn't that the joke? That people only care when something's about to disappear? They only chase the truth when it starts running away. Like a kid who only loves the toy once someone else wants it. That's not love. That's fear in a pretty costume. Urgency pulls the masks off comfort. It exposes what you're really afraid to lose. That voice you ignored, suddenly it's screaming. That dream you shelved, suddenly it's priceless, because now you don't have the luxury of later. Now you don't have the time to overthink, to second guess, to scroll past. Urgency doesn't give you time to negotiate. It gives you a choice. Move or miss it. Wake up or lose it. Move, and that choice, that moment, it cuts deeper than any sermon, any motivational speech, any life coach with a podcast. And the best part, it was always there. The message, the opportunity, the voice, but you were too busy, too distracted, too numb. Then someone whispers, "One day left." Now your heartbeat skips. Now your breath catches. Now you're listening. But not because you're inspired, because you're scared. Scared it's real. Scared it's true. And maybe, just maybe, scared that this time it's too late. You learn a lot about people when you put a clock in front of them. Some panic, some freeze. But the ones who really get it, they move fast, without waiting for applause, without needing permission, because they know that truth doesn't wait, purpose doesn't pause, and time, well, time's a thief that doesn't knock. It just walks in and takes what you weren't watching closely enough. That's the thing nobody wants to admit, that maybe they don't actually value the right things until they're at risk of losing them. Maybe the job, the relationship, the calling, the faith, it all gets clearer when the hourglass flips, and suddenly urgency becomes a mirror. And what it shows you, it's not always pretty. Sometimes it shows you how much time you've wasted. Sometimes it shows you how little you really care. But if you're lucky, if you're awake enough, it shows you what you still have time to fight for. But only if you're listening. Only if you're honest enough to stop pretending you're not afraid. Because once the urgency kicks in, the lies get quieter, the noise fades, and all that's left is you, the clock, and the truth you tried to ignore while you thought forever was a guarantee. Oh, they love shiny things, limited editions, one-time offers, countdown timers, only 3 left in stock. You slap a warning label on something and suddenly everybody wants it. Not because they understand its worth, because they're terrified someone else might grab it first. That's what we've become, huh? Not seekers of value, just addicts chasing what feels exclusive. Doesn't even matter if it's trash. If it's rare, it must be important. If it's slipping away, it must be special. But here's the joke. They don't chase what feeds their soul. They chase what tickles their fear of missing out. Scarcity. That's the drug. Not wisdom, not truth. Scarcity. You tell them this video is here forever, they'll ignore it. Tell them it's gone in 24 hours, they'll click like their life depends on it. But what change? The message? The lesson? No, just the packaging. Just the illusion that it might vanish. It's not the content that's sacred. It's the ticking clock. That's what gets their blood pumping. Not revelation, not transformation. Just the anxiety that someone else might get it before they do. See, people don't value things because they're valuable. They value things because they're hard to get. You wrap something in velvet, put it behind glass, and suddenly they'll pay anything for it. But leave it in the open, free to take, and it becomes invisible. You can scream the truth until your voice breaks, but unless they think it's in short supply, they'll walk past like it's background noise. That's why they don't chase truth. They chase novelty, rarity, urgency. Not because it's real, but because it feels exclusive. And exclusive makes them feel important. It's all a game of perception. You take the same truth, same words, same message, and make it feel like it's disappearing, and suddenly people treat it like gold. Suddenly they're sharing it, crying over it, acting like they've discovered fire. But it was always there, always waiting. They just needed the illusion that it might not be there tomorrow. That's when it hit them. Not because it finally made sense, but because they finally paid attention. Attention doesn't follow truth. It follows panic. It follows scarcity. That's the comedy. They'll ignore the things that can change them, heal them, wake them up, until someone says last chance. And then it becomes holy, it becomes divine. Not because they've changed, but because now they think they might lose it. And you can't lose what you never owned. You can't miss what you never valued. But oh, the second you say this will be gone tomorrow, now it's sacred. Now it's meaningful, because they're not chasing purpose, they're avoiding regret. They'll cry over a video that's about to disappear, but stay numb to the truth that's been screaming in their face for years. They'll skip a message that costs nothing, then line up for a version of it that says, experience soon. It's not about the truth, it's about the chase. It's about the thrill. The adrenaline of almost losing something becomes more powerful than the lesson itself. They want the rush of urgency, not the responsibility of wisdom. They want to feel something, not change something. You watch it happen every day. Something old, something wise, something pure. It sits there, untouched. But label it with a deadline? Now it's viral. Now it matters. They didn't suddenly grow a conscience. They didn't suddenly wake up. They just got scared. And fear is a louder motivator than love, than logic, than truth, That's what scarcity does. It turns the ordinary into gold, but only in the final second, only when it's almost too late. And that's the real kicker. The value was always there. The truth never changed. It's them, their timing, their perspective, their obsession with chasing what feels rare instead of honoring what's been right in front of them the whole time. They don't care that it's true. They care that it's temporary. Because something about the ticking clock makes them feel like they're doing something important, even if they aren't. Even if they're just watching the countdown instead of changing anything. You want people to care? Don't show them the truth. Show them the exit. Show them the expiration date. Show them the moment the doors close. That's when they'll run. That's when they'll grab on. Not because they understand what they're holding, but because they're terrified of missing out on something they never even tried to understand in the first place. It's almost poetic how people respond to fear, isn't it? You give them purpose, they yawn. You give them time, they waste it. But whisper, you might miss it. And suddenly they're wide awake, gasping like a fish yanked from water. They weren't asleep because they were tired. They were asleep because there was no fire under their feet. Purpose is too quiet. It doesn't scream. But fear? Oh, fear knows how to put on a show. Fear knows how to slap you across the face and make you pay attention. And between purpose and panic, guess which one most people listen to? People don't wake up for dreams. They wake up for disasters. Tell them they're meant for more, and they'll shrug. Tell them they're about to lose everything, and suddenly they want to talk about destiny. Suddenly they want to pray, to fight, to run. Purpose speaks in whispers. Fear kicks the door in. And that's the game. You want to move people? You don't feed them hope. You feed them urgency. Not because it's noble, because it works. And it's always worked. Purpose is a warm blanket. Fear is a ticking bomb. Guess which one gets the room's attention? It's funny how people crave safety, but only respond to danger. They want peace, but they only move when there's chaos. You offer them a slow road to growth, they change the channel. Offer them a crash course in destruction, and they can't look away. Because somewhere deep down, they're not addicted to comfort. They're addicted to crisis. And that's the dark little secret. The soft stuff doesn't sell. The panic does. They don't want to be gently nudged into greatness. They want to be shoved, slapped, shaken awake. Why? Because fear makes everything feel urgent. It strips away the layers. You're not thinking about likes or comments or approval when your back's against the wall. You're thinking survival. You're thinking now. And when people hit that moment, when the comfortable lie falls apart and the clock starts ticking loud enough to drown everything else out, that's when they listen. That's when their eyes open for real. Not because they're noble, but because they're afraid. And for the first time, that fear isn't something they scrawl past. It's crawling under their skin. People aren't blind to their purpose. They just don't fear missing it. Not yet. They treat it like a rerun, like something they'll get back to once life slows down. But life doesn't slow down. It speeds up. It crashes. It breaks. And when it does, the truth shows up with a siren. The same truth they ignored when it was gentle now shows up dressed as a fire alarm. That's when people start talking about second chance, about redemption, about fate, not because they suddenly understand it, but because they feel like they're running out of time to fake it. There's something raw about the way fear cracks people open. You see the real faces, no filters, no poses, just the human underneath, gasping for something real. And in that moment, when all the fake priorities burn away, you finally see what matters to them. Not what they said mattered, what actually mattered. That's what urgency does. It takes off the mask, it burns off the distractions, and it leaves you face to face with your own reflection in a mirror that does. People wait their whole lives for a perfect moment, for a sign, for some golden invitation to purpose. But it never comes dressed in gold. It comes dressed in fire, in noise, in the feeling that you might be too late. That's what wakes people up. Not comfort, not kindness, consequence. The idea that maybe this is your last chance, that maybe the door is closing, and if you don't move now, you'll never get it back. That's what finally gets people off the couch. Not inspiration, fear. Beautiful, horrible fear. The real irony, that fear they run from their whole lives, it's the only thing that ever really got them to move. All the books, the speeches, the gentle nudges, they meant nothing. But the moment something was at stake, the moment something started slipping away, they became alive, wide-eyed, breathless, like they just remembered what it felt like to care about something. That's not weakness, that's reality. People aren't moved by vision. They're moved by the edge of the cliff, by the thought of losing something they didn't even know they needed until it was almost gone. And maybe that's not noble, maybe it's not poetic, but it's real. And in a world full of fake smiles and empty promises, real is the loudest thing left. Even if it's ugly, even if it hurts, because pain gets remembered, fear gets remembered. And if that's what it takes to shake someone out of their sleep, maybe that's exactly what they needed all along.